Good afternoon, guys. Michael's been asking me to do a episode on baking since I like to bake so much. So since I'm going to be making these chocolate chip pumpkin bars to take to our Thanksgiving meal on Saturday, I thought I'd kind of take you through the process and see if you guys would be interested in making them. I just want to give a shout out to Sarah at Mom Endeavors. This is her recipe. And so I'll let you know what I think of it. I love pumpkin and chocolate chips together. I'm not a big fan of pumpkin pie alone, so that's why I'm making these. Personally, one piece of pumpkin pie and I'm good for the rest of the year, but if you put pumpkin cookies with chocolate chips in them, I can eat those every day. Alright, so let's get started. The first part of the recipe is combining the dry ingredients. So what we got is 2 cups of flour, a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a half teaspoon of salt. I went ahead and combined that together. I made my own pumpkin pie spice, but you can buy it at Walmart for like $1 for the little McCormick containers. And we'll mix that all together. We'll get that all nice and mixed up. I tend to make a mess when I'm cooking. That kind of goes along with the whole baking aspect. Alright, the next part is when we start combining the wet ingredients together, and then we'll combine the dry and wet. We're going to start off with a cup of butter. It's softened. It just makes it easier to cream together with your sugar. Alright, let's kind of go ahead and stir that up a little bit. Alright, so once you got that stirred up a little bit, you're going to add your sugar. I like to do a little bit at a time, just make sure it gets all mixed in. You don't have any kind of sugar crystals that don't get mixed in and clump together. Alright, once you get that all mixed in, we're going to add an egg. Okay, and the last part to the wet ingredients is 2 teaspoons of vanilla. We actually ran out of vanilla, and so I substituted half of it with maple syrup. Alright. So once you have that all taken care of, you're going to combine them together. And then we just stir. Okay, so your dough's going to be a little clumpy, still a little dry, but that's okay. We still have the main ingredient, pumpkin and chocolate chips, to add. I just use a standard can of pumpkin puree. As you can tell, it started to form a nice dough. Now some people like to mix in their chocolate chips. I like to fold them in. That way you keep the whole chip together. I'm using 1.5 cups, and something I've always had a tradition to do with my mom, you always just take a small little handful from the bowl, pop them in your mouth and make sure they still taste good, because you don't want to use bad chocolate chips. And just fold it all together. If you got any dry flour, it's kind of stuck in the corners or bottom of your pan, this is a good time to get it nice and folded in. You just want to stir it so you get chocolate chips in every bite. Alright, so that looks good. Now we'll get it in the pans and into the oven. Alrighty, so since we are taking these to Rob and Jordan's for Thanksgiving tomorrow, I ended up, instead of just using one 9x13 pan, I'm going to use two 8x8s. Just to, one, it'll thin it out a little bit, but two, it'll let us split it up so we can keep a couple here and let Rob and Jordan keep the rest there. So it's always a good idea to take some butter and just grease the inside of the pan to keep it from sticking. Just a nice light coating. Crisco works well too, or the spray butter, spray oil. Anything to give it a nice, layer to prevent it from sticking to the pan. Alright. And then we'll go ahead and just kind of spoon it in. And once we got this spooned in, we're going to stick it in the oven. We're going to bake it for 30 minutes at 325. Alright, and this is how it should look before you put it in the oven. Ready?
Yep.
Alright guys, so here's the finished product. Let's cut it open and see how it looks on the inside. Alright, nice and done. Chocolate's nice and gooey. Pretty good.